So, welcome to another teaching. My name is Ekaneme Kuma, and today our conversation is on submission in marriage. Marriage can be confusing for many people, women especially, in the area of submission. Sometimes some expectations are thrown at us, and we wonder, is this still submission, or have we crossed the lines into some form of imbalanced master servant relationship? Some modern day slavery, I'd call it. This topic I know will stir discomfort in some people, but it's the kind of conversation that we need to have because it reflects the deep tensions many people especially experience within the marriage. I mean, while marriage is perceived as a beautiful thing and desired by many, some flourish in it. Others feel trapped, voiceless, and full of regrets. I'll go over some fundamentals just to give us clarity in this topic. First, marriage. What is it all about? Marriage is a partnership, and it is a partnership that thrives when roles are clearly defined, mutually understood, and embraced. So, understanding your role in marriage helps to prevent conflict and will advance unity within your home and your marriage. So, what are these roles? Historically, men have been seen as providers and protectors, while women have been nurturers and caregivers. This role of protecting and providing for the man translates to leadership in a marital union. The woman, on the other hand, submits in trust to that leadership. In probing ourselves, I'd like us to ruminate on these thoughts. Do I have roles in my marriage? Did I freely choose those roles? Am I still fulfilling them out of love and willingness? Or has it become a burden I silently struggle to carry? I'll quickly define the keywords just to help us in our context. What is slavery? Slavery is forced labor, it is the loss of freedom, and it often includes abuse or exploitation. Slavery in a marriage strips away identity and dignity. Sadly, some marriages today, disguised as holy unions, are beginning to show these tendencies and mirror modern day slave markets. Someone may be asking me, isn't a woman meant to submit, to follow, and be fair? That is true. But we must be very clear what this means and where the boundaries are. Just because a woman desires leadership doesn't mean she desires domination. There's a dangerous misconception out there that to be a good wife, a woman must be subdued, tamed, or even broken. But here's the truth. A broken woman cannot be a true helper. Taming, breaking, and subduing are words for slaves, not partners. A woman must be whole, bold, and confident to walk beside her husband as a worthy and strong partner in life. So if that's the kind of person you're looking at to be a wife, then you have to make her exactly that. And if you're a woman, you want to be that, that's your idea for yourself, then please stay that way. So we're still defining the terms. This word submission, what is it? Let me take us into a little history. It has the root in the Latin word submissio, meaning to place oneself, not to be forced, under the discretion or leadership of another. In biblical terms, submission is about willingly yielding to someone out of love, honor, and trust. It is not blind obedience, it is a choice. It is not a cage. Submission is voluntary yielding. It is fueled by love and honor. It is strength under control. It is rooted in Christ because he's our perfect example. Philippians chapter 2 verse 5 to 11 says, even though Jesus, he had the form of God, yet he did not consider it equality. He submitted to the will of God willingly. God exalted and glorified him, and yet he is God. He and the Father are one. There is no distinction between them. That's the mystery of the Trinity, which is reflected in the mystery of marriage, if marriage is done properly. I'll try to give an overview of marriage. So, this is a legal covenant, a partnership, a mutual agreement between two consenting adults to be joined together. The Bible has some terms to describe partners in a marriage, and number one term is mate. You see it in Genesis 7, you see it in Isaiah 34. But in Genesis 2:18, partners in marriage were described as a helpmate, a helpmate. In some versions, a suitable helper. While the first two instances were referring to animals, sexual partners, male and female, when it came to man, God specified the functionalities of the mate. A mate designed with intent and for purpose, so a helpmate. Now, what's the origin of marriage? In Genesis chapter 3, something went wrong, and the Lord asked Adam, and he passed the ball to Eve, and so forth. They kept passing blame. It was the woman who said, it was the man who said, it was the serpent. So God went ahead and he set order for the family, for man and his mate, for the sake of accountability. He said to the woman, you will desire him, he will rule over you. Please note the words desire and rule, because these are the keys to understanding marriage and the concept of submission within a marriage. Desire means a strong feeling of wanting. A woman should submit willingly from a place of love. Where this is missing, submission will either be pretentiously enforced out of fear, and when this becomes the case, I can tell you for free, like God told Cain, be careful because sin crouches at your door. Things will go horribly wrong in that union sooner or later. Growing up, I used to hear marriage is like a prison. When you enter, they lock you both in and throw away the key. I don't subscribe to that. Marriage is not a prison. The key is not thrown away. Both of you have a copy in your pocket. You choose to stay because you want to, not because you have been locked in. You see, when both parties in a marriage understand this, you won't treat your partner shabbily as one who is trapped or one who has been conquered or has been picked up in a conquest. So now the conversation isn't about whether leadership and submission exist in marriage. We know they do. The real question is this: are those roles freely embraced or unjustly enforced? Most of the doctrines on wifely submission has been drawn from Ephesians chapter 5 verse 22 to 25. I read, wives submit yourselves to your husbands, your own husbands, as you do to the Lord. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. But here's the part we often miss. This conversation didn't start at verse 22. If you go back to the beginning of the chapter, Paul was speaking to the entire church about how to live with each other in love and wisdom. He was addressing their relationship as brethren. He talks about singing to each other in psalms and hymns. And in verse 21, just before the part about wives and husbands, Paul says, submit one to another out of reverence for Christ. Some versions would say submit to one another. Same Greek word, same tone used in verse 22. That means submission is a mutual heart posture in relationships. Yes, a mutual heart posture in relationships, and it was not intended to create a master-slave scenario. The woman in the picture on my slide, she lies submitted on her belly with her eyes fixed on a man's hand, supposedly her husband's hand. That hand tells her what to do. It keeps her in check, maybe even silences her with fear. Let me tell you this, silence isn't submission. Neither is suppressed anger or hidden tears. When a woman stays quiet out of fear or cries in a corner after being emotionally or physically abused, that's not submission, that's pain, that's control, that's oppression. And let me be clear, biblical submission is not silence in abuse. It is not the loss of your opinion, of your dreams, or your voice. It does not mean enduring emotional, physical, or sexual violence. True submission is rooted in mutual love, sacrifice, and respect. It's a position of strength, not weakness. It flows from trust, not terror. It thrives in a relationship where the husband is first submitted to God. So yes, husbands and wives may have different roles, but difference does not mean less important in this partnership of marriage. Yet, why does submission feel like slavery every now and then? As women, we've been given the intelligent and often delicate task of submitting in love while still maintaining our identity, voice, and strength. I call it intelligence because it requires discernment. We live in a world shaped by complex societal, cultural, and religious expectations about what it means to be a submissive wife. That's why we must find a healthy balance where submission is not mistaken for weakness and strength is not misread as arrogance. This balance shows up in everyday things: how we speak, our tone, how we respond, our posture and body language, and sometimes in how we make sacrifices, not as victims, but for the greater good of the relationship and family. I'll give an example. So yes, you brought in all the money at a particular time. Was it forced or was it your choice? Why have pity? Why have a pity party after you made that choice to give all that you had? If it was needed to be done at the time, fine. It might not be your traditional role, but you chose to do it. So do not look at yourself as a victim. Now, some women may say, am I the one always adjusting, making sacrifices? Isn't that slavery? Not necessarily. As women, we're wired with a deep emotional strength and resilience, and we can carry more, we can adjust more, we can give more, not because we're lesser, but because we're capable. However, it becomes slavery when, in spite of this, your voice is silenced, your needs are consistently ignored, decisions about your life are made without your input in your union. There's no room for mutual growth or honest conversation between you and your spouse, and your dignity is crushed under constant control and domination of your spouse. That becomes slavery. The biblical instruction to couples is to love and honor, not to dominate or break each other. If we check 1 Corinthians 13, you can see what real love looks like. It is patient, it is kind, it is not self-seeking, it is not proud. That's the blueprint. Marriage should not break you. It should build you and allow you to blossom and thrive. Then you can say you have a marriage. There are many areas of submission. I will just focus on two in today's teaching: sex and obedience. Is sex an act or show of submission? Somebody may be asking. So I'll just say it quickly that sex in a marriage is an act or show of desire, not submission. It is not a conquest or a show of dominance and power. It is supposed to be mutually desired and enjoyed. It is not a show of submission, I repeat. Sex, as God designed it, is not transactional. It is not something a wife gives just to keep the peace, or something a husband demands as proof of loyalty or obedience. That's manipulation and not intimacy. In Songs of Solomon, the language between lovers is filled with longing, pursuit, and desire, not pressure or control or duty. That tells us something. God designed sex to be mutual, passionate, and joyful. When sex is reduced to an obligation, especially under the label of submission, it loses its essence. It becomes performance, a duty, a checkbox. It loses its status as a place of connection, vulnerability, delight, and mutual submission. Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, 3-4, he tells couples not to deprive each other, but he speaks to both the husband and the wife, not just the wife, because both give in a sexual union, both receive. When sex is always one-sided, fear, given only out of obligation, fear, guilt, or pressure, it becomes a burden and breeds resentment, distance, and emotional fatigue. Sex is most fulfilling when it flows from emotional safety, mutual respect, and genuine desire. It is not about submission. Much as conjugal rights is lawful, it cannot be forced. If you do, you might end up violating the law: assault, bodily harm, unnatural sex, all are offenses within the law. So sex is an act of desire, not submission. Do you desire him? If not, examine why, and talk things through. But please don't force. Don't force your partner. It's not an option. My second focus is obedience. Can submission be wrong under the cover of obedience? I mean, as a wife, how much should I bend over in obeying? Like I said earlier, a woman desires to be led. She, however, does this voluntarily and has the capacity to recognize when her leader or her cover is wrong. Remember, she's a helper. So in such cases, there is always the conflict between letting him be the man and sink the ship, or take over and save the day. But the truth is, when your cover is not trustworthy or responsible, the wisdom in submission to his leadership is queried. Case study, Abigail and Nabal in 1 Samuel 25. Nabal lacked situational awareness, he lacked information, and perhaps the confidence of his workers. Because why didn't they give him the information on David? They gave it to Abigail. They said, he doesn't listen. Verse 17. Sometimes our husbands can be like that. And no offense to husbands, but they are just these moments. Nabal was busy hosting a feast when there were security issues in the home. Unaware of the threats to his family, unable to comprehend logic and make sound decisions. He was drinking, he was partying. So Abigail acted against his earlier instructions. His earlier instructions was that David and his band should be sent away. And when she did it, it wasn't something selfish. She acted in the best interest of her husband and her home. And then she sought a good time to tell him about it. She didn't tell him to counter him soon after he gave the order, or belittle him in front of his servants with a war of words, or when he was drunk and partying. No, she explained it to him later in verse 37. So these scenarios must be handled with wisdom. Ask yourself, what are the stakes? If the damage to my husband's direction is beyond, my damage to submitting to my husband's direction is beyond a wounded ego for him, then do what you must and find the time to explain. And for our husbands and the men, you cannot force submission. And attempts to do that might lead you to the corridors of criminality. The easy way is to cultivate it, to earn it, or you seek redress in court. Okay, so I've mentioned courts. I'll just quickly see what the law says. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just going to go over some of the things that are public knowledge. And these are a summary of the key protections that you have within a marriage. Number one, there's the right to cohabitation, the right to live together, and respect for companionship. You have a right to sexual relations, which covers the right to intimacy, which must be consensual and respectful. You have a right to fidelity, that is obligation of exclusivity, which preserves emotional dignity. You have a right to consent. Marriage must be voluntary and it must uphold individual autonomy. Of course, there's also the right to legal recourse. That's the right to restitution or the right to dissolve. This protects you against abuse or neglect in your marriage. So those are the legal angles. I'm sure that a lawyer or should be able to give us more details on, and these are information you can find publicly. So what makes the difference between whether your marriage becomes slavery or it is just submission is the voice that you have in your marriage. So developing a voice in your marriage is not about shouting or out-talking your spouse. It is a mix of little things we sometimes overlook, and I'll try to outline a few. Number one, know your value. Show your worth. This is not pride, it is not arrogance, it is self-awareness. You must present yourself in that marriage as someone who understands their value and what they bring to the table. And no, this has nothing to do with your income, status, or education. It is about presence. It is about respect. Respect for yourself and commanding it in return. Number two, be responsible and accountable. If you want to be trusted, you have to be dependable. Your consistency builds the foundation of trust. When a man marries a woman and sees she has some sense, he will tap into it. Keeping mute on all things, as submissive as it may seem, can also leave you looking as though you know nothing to add. And don't get me wrong, please, a voice in marriage doesn't come from making noise. It comes from character and integrity. Be someone your partner can count on. even when no one is watching. Number 3, you must learn communication. When your partner is out of line or consistently dysfunctional in some way, whether it is emotionally, spiritually, or behaviorally, this is where communication becomes a powerful tool. In learning communication, you understand that it's not accusation, it's not nagging. I always recommend using self-descriptive language rather than you descriptive language. For instance, instead of saying you always ignore me, say I feel ignored when decisions are made without me. It is less likely to trigger defensiveness and more likely to promote understanding. You must also speak with clarity, speak with firmness, and always speak with love. Let your goal be growth, not blame, not to tear down your partner, not destruction. Correction is not condemnation. Number 4, we must celebrate what is good and reinforce positive behavior. Don't just correct what's wrong, celebrate what's right. Learn to say thank you, give compliments, give something if you can. Let your partner know you see and appreciate the effort. When it's necessary, be firm without being mean. Number 5, you must protect your dignity. Please hear this. Your dignity is important, very important. Anything that strips you of your dignity does not belong in your marriage. Set boundaries, make consequences clear, but always within the boundaries of respect for your partner. Don't infringe on your partner's dignity, even while protecting your own. Assert your preferences, express your limits, but with love and clarity. I was counseling a couple recently, and the man kept insisting, I'm older than her, so she must submit. And I wondered to myself, if you think she's a child, why did you marry her? Children don't bear children. Children don't warm your bed. People don't marry their fathers, mothers, or school principals. You marry a partner that becomes a mate. That's the word scripture uses, and even biology uses, a sexual partner, a mate. And it speaks of equality and mutual respect, not age or hierarchy. So you must also be empowered. Number 6, strengthen yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and yes, financially. A voice with no empowerment is a whisper. But when you are whole and grounded in all these areas, your voice carries weight. Number 7, don't sell your family cheap. Marriage is sacred, but your family is not for sale. Do not trade the integrity and honor of your family, that's the family, your birth family, for the image of a perfect marriage. You must have a cover. Your family is that cover. So you must be wise, protect your people, and let them have some respect before your spouse. Having a family cover doesn't mean running home to report every issue. No. Know the issues that are existential according to your family values. For those of us that are parents, we have to remain that cover even in their marriage. Yes, it isn't right to interfere, but let them have the assurance of a safety net in us when it is required. I was talking to a lady in an abusive marriage, and she narrated how she had to sleep outside the house overnight in one of the times her husband beat her and locked her outside. Pregnant at 7 months, she lost her baby as a result of this. And I asked her one question, and I said, are your parents late? She said, no, my mother leaves. Then why didn't you call her and find some shelter? What she said next broke my heart. She said, my mother said I should endure my marriage. If I come back home, I will disgrace her and she will commit suicide. I don't know what kind of mother that is, but we must set the right foundation in how we give out our children and the value we place on them at that point. We must be clear what the terms of engagement are in the unions we're about to approve. And I'm speaking to parents now. My father, when marrying out his 5 girls, always emphasized how he's giving them out in love and expects them to be treated with love. He goes on to repeat, I'm not selling them. I have kept a room for them in my house. They will always have a home here, and I'll be watching to see that this smile on their face today doesn't disappear. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. So do your due diligence. I love him, I love her. It's not enough for you to give your consent as a parent, because anything that happens to that child is your personal loss. And the spouse is free to remarry and move on. I wonder what happens. You see ladies crying in corners, and then when something happens, God forbid the person dies, family members swoon in and they make demands, and they want to crucify the other party. And the question would be, where were you when she cried alone, when she endured these things and was treated like nobody? Because something that ends in death did not start in a day. The truth is that so much is happening, and too many of us are playing the ostrich and allowing our children to navigate these murky waters unaided. For that person without a cover, please, I beg you, if you're near, step in and play the role. Mustn't be your biological child. Don't look away. Number 8, have a legal and valid marriage. Legality in marriage gives you a voice in the eyes of the law. It defines your rights. A valid marriage is a court registry. It is never too late. Some other lady I was counseling has been abandoned with 3 children. She has no means of taking care of them. She wasn't allowed to work or school in the many years they were together. The man appears to have moved on, and she came to me. I want him to take charge of my upkeep, the children's bills, etc. I will go to court. And I asked her, show me your marriage certificate. And she says, he came to my people to pay bride price, that's all. While this is not illegal, it is not enough to get you the claims that you now want. That's what I told her. Your voice in marriage isn't given. You find it, you develop it, and once you do, you don't lose it. And please make sure you have all the legal angles to this marriage covered. So these are my final thoughts. If you're single, don't marry out of pressure or pity. Look for a man who understands mutual submission, sacrifice, sacrificial love, and spiritual leadership. Remember, you're expected to submit to him. So be sure who he is submitting to first, so that both of you don't end up submitting to the devil. And I mean, this applies to both males and females. If you're married and thriving, congratulations. Be an example of balance and joy to others. Encourage other women, help, mentor when you can. Also, don't assume you have arrived. I mean, like all relationships, the work must be a continuum, the work for a good marriage. Don't take your partner for granted. Communicate regularly, openly, with mutual respect. New expectations creep into a marriage from time to time. Discuss them and review. Don't talk down or dismiss your partner's expectations, even if they are new and a little strange to you. Honor each other's strengths, voices, and needs. Submit to each other. Don't expect it from just one side. God at the center of the marriage. Keep God at the center of the marriage. It makes all the difference. He's the one who teaches two people in a marriage to love. He's the one who corrects them. And he's the one who binds hearts together. And to the men, and to those of us who have sons, please teach them to submit to Christ, to make themselves lovable, and then love their wives. You teach a man to love. Being lovable is different from loving. You might be loving me in a way I don't appreciate, and so we have misunderstandings. Make yourself into a person I can love, someone who can gain my respect, who can gain my trust, somebody who is dependable. Women desire to submit, but you cannot force submission. An attempt to do that, like I said, will lead you to the corridors of criminality. So the easy way for a man is to earn it by nursing to birth the desire that is innate in a woman to give herself and her all. Make yourself worthy of it. If you're married but struggling, seek godly counsel. Review your relationship and expectations. Make adjustments where necessary. Find your voice. Gather your strength. Know that submission does not mean silence in the face of abuse or neglect. Don't carry the burden alone. There's help. Nobody can tell you when it's enough. Truly, it's a conclusion you must reach yourself. I do not advocate for divorce or separation. I also do not endorse slavery. The Bible doesn't endorse slavery either. Remember, there's a key in your pocket. Like we're all warned in the preamble of a wedding ceremony, marriage is not to be entered into lightly and without proper consideration. Same is the use of that key. It's not as easy as just turning the lock and going out. Things are never the same afterwards. So let's all agree that marriage in God's eyes is a beautiful union of two strong individuals working together in love, respect, and purpose. Therefore, we must intentionally raise our daughters to know the difference, that marriage is not slavery. It is not the erasure of your identity, even though you take on the other person's last name. It is not a death sentence to your purpose, and it is certainly not supposed to be a master-slave union. So I hope this session gives some context, clarification, and education on the expectations and boundaries of submission within a marriage. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again soon.